Welcome back to day 4 of our December series. Every evening, we take a little time, just a pocket of quiet, to unpack the things we hold on to, the patterns we live inside, the thoughts that shape how we move through life. And today's theme came up almost by accident. Yesterday, after recording, Elen and I kept talking off mic. Not about anything dramatic, just about how easy it is to cling to things. Thoughts, worries, old stories, old versions of people, even responsibilities that stopped being ours years ago. And one line from that conversation stayed with me the whole night. Some things don't need closure. They just need release. So we decided. Today, we're exploring the art of letting go. Not as a dramatic act, not as a movie moment, but as a mental skill. A learned, practiced, sometimes clumsy skill, but a liberating one. And as always, Elen is here with me. When you hear letting go, what comes to mind for you? Not personally, just from life, from people you've met, from patterns you've seen? Honestly, I think about how humans cling, not because we're weak, but because our brains love certainty, even when that certainty hurts. I've seen people hold onto relationships that drained them, jobs that suffocated them, habits that made them miserable, simply because the discomfort was familiar. The unknown feels like a threat, even when it's actually freedom. And letting go, it's not about moving on overnight. It's more like loosening the mental fist we've wrapped around something. Just a little. Just enough to breathe. Exactly. Psychologists talk about this a lot, how the brain treats unresolved situations like open taps. The longer we keep them open, the more mental RAM they drain. There's even a term for it, cognitive load residue. It means when you don't let something go, it lingers in the background like a notification you never clear. I see it everywhere. People replaying conversations in their heads, overthinking a message they sent, carrying guilt from years ago, holding on to a dream that stopped fitting the person they became. Or holding on to the idea that you can fix everything if you think about it one more time. Yes, the one more round of overthinking myth. What I've noticed is that letting go is rarely about the thing itself, the job, the person, the mistake. It's about the identity attached to it. Like, if I let go of this, who am I? If I stop trying, what does that say about me? If I don't hold on to it, does it mean it never mattered? But most of the time, letting go simply means I'm choosing myself over a loop I can't solve. And that's the part people forget. Letting go isn't a loss. It's a redirect. A reallocation of emotional energy. There's a psychological concept called self-distancing, basically observing your thoughts instead of becoming them. When you use it, letting go becomes less dramatic, more practical. Like, this thought is not helpful anymore. This worry is costing more energy than it's worth. This situation isn't mine to fix.
Exactly.
And what's funny and slightly painful is how often we cling to things we never chose in the first place. Expectations, roles, stories people placed on us. Letting go can be as simple as saying, I don't have to carry this version of me anymore. I can outgrow it. Should we talk about how some people hold on to things so tightly that if you asked them to let go, they'd need a small ceremony? Oh, absolutely. I know people who need a goodbye letter, a playlist, a moon ritual, a TED Talk, 3 horoscopes, and a sign from the universe. Just to delete a text thread. Haha, we are complex creatures. But jokes aside, what I love about the psychology of letting go is this. Most of the time, it's not about forcing distance. It's about creating space. Space for a clearer mind. Space for new insight. Space for becoming someone who isn't constantly wrestling with old weight. And people underestimate how peaceful that space feels. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's just relief. A quiet kind of freedom that says, I don't have to hold this anymore. So, let's move into something that isn't talked about enough. Why letting go is actually healthier than holding on. Not spiritually, not poetically, but psychologically.
Exactly.
Because people think letting go means giving up, being weak, or not caring enough. But on a psychological level, holding on too tightly is one of the biggest sources of emotional fatigue. Yes, When you cling to something, a person, an outcome, a mistake, a fantasy, your brain stays in a constant state of tension. You're basically telling your nervous system, stay alert, don't relax. Something could go wrong, and the body listens. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, racing thoughts. Overthinking becomes your default setting, not because you're dramatic, but because your brain believes you're in danger. Your brain becomes like that friend who's way too protective. Don't let go. Something scary will happen. Meanwhile, nothing scary is happening, right? It's like your brain is still gripping things from 2017. Old friendships you've outgrown. Arguments that ended years ago. Mistakes you already apologized for. Dreams you don't even want anymore. And here's the psychological truth. The mind holds on because it believes control equals safety. But in reality, holding on keeps you stuck in past versions of yourself.
Exactly.
And letting go, it's not a release into chaos. It's a release into reality. That's beautifully said. Because holding on is like dragging your past into every room you enter. Letting go is walking in without carrying a suitcase full of what-ifs. And our brains actually benefit from that. When you let go, the nervous system shifts from survival mode to regulation. You sleep better. You breathe deeper. You think clearer. You make decisions based on where you are, not where you were hurt. Yes. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It just stops letting the past run the show. It's like putting your past in the back seat. It can come for the ride, but it's not allowed to drive anymore.
Exactly.
Letting go lets your brain stop fighting invisible battles. It lets your heart stop expecting the worst. It opens space, not for something dramatic, but for breathing. And for peace. Which, honestly, most people don't realize they're craving until they finally feel it. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is choosing yourself. So, let's move into something most of us don't even realize we're doing. When holding on becomes self-betrayal. Because people think holding on is loyalty, commitment, strength. But sometimes it's actually abandoning yourself in slow motion.
Yes.
And the hardest part is, it rarely feels dramatic at first. It starts small. You tolerate a comment that stings. You stay in a routine that drains you. You keep a habit that hurts more than it helps. And you tell yourself, it's fine. I can handle it. But what you're really saying is, my discomfort matters less than keeping this thing intact. Exactly. That's the moment self-betrayal begins, the moment the relationship, the job, the dream, the version of yourself becomes more important than your well-being. There's a psychological term for this. Identity overcoupling. It basically means you've tied your sense of who I am to something that is actually hurting you, so letting it go feels like losing yourself, even when it's saving you. And you see this everywhere. People stay in friendship circles that make them shrink. People cling to relationships because we've been together so long. People hold onto career paths out of fear that changing direction means they failed. But holding on just because you're afraid to loosen your grip, that's not strength. That's fear wearing a brave face. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is whisper, "This is no longer good for me." Let's take this deeper. The difference between healing and attachment. A lot of people confuse the two. Oh yes. Attachment is emotional gravity. Healing is emotional clarity. Attachment says, I can't let go because I need this. Healing says, I can let go because I finally understand what this was. Attachment is filled with longing, fantasy, nostalgia. Healing is grounded, honest, sometimes painfully so. And here's what psychology shows. Staying attached to something that has already ended emotionally, energetically, or practically keeps the nervous system in a constant loop of hope and disappointment. It's like trying to keep a door open that the universe keeps gently closing.
Right.
And the body knows. When it's attachment masquerading as healing, you feel anxious, restless, tight in the chest. Like you're trying to fix something by holding it closer. When it's real healing, you feel softer. Not necessarily happy, but spacious. Like you took a deep breath for the first time in months. And letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying what was never yours to hold alone.
Exactly.
People think letting go is cold, but it's actually warm. It's choosing peace over chaos, clarity over confusion, dignity over desperation. And honestly, most of the time, letting go is an act of profound self-respect. What do we fear most about letting go, and why is that fear almost always lying to us? This is the part people don't like to admit, because the fear isn't really about the thing we're holding on to. It's about what we think letting go means. Right. We attach meaning to it. If I let go of this person, I failed. If I let go of this goal, I'm weak. If I let go of this version of myself, who am I without it? The fear is never the release. It's the identity shift that follows.
Exactly.
And we're terrified of that gap, the space between the old self and the new one. That empty hallway where we're not who we were, but we're not yet who we're becoming. People mistake that hallway for danger. But actually, that almost empty space is where life finally has room to move again. And the mind lies to us there. It says, you'll regret it. You'll be alone. You'll lose something irreplaceable. You won't find anything better. But fear has this very predictable pattern. It always overestimates the pain of change and underestimates the pain of staying stuck.
Yes. Fear is dramatic.
Fear assumes you're incapable. Fear acts like you're still the same version of yourself from years ago, fragile, unprepared, helpless. But the truth is, you've survived so much already. You've rebuilt before. You've adapted. You've grown. Fear forgets your history. And fear also tells this big lie. If you let go, you lose control. But the reality? We lose control by holding on. We tighten our grip, and suddenly the thing is controlling us, our sleep, our decisions, our self-worth, our peace. Letting go is actually an act of reclaiming control. Not control over others, but control over our energy, our boundaries, our emotional life. And here's something I've seen again and again, in myself, in friends, in strangers. The fear of letting go is always bigger than the letting go itself. The fear is the mountain. The letting go is just a door you open and walk through. And I think that's the shift we're trying to bring today. Letting go is not punishment. It's not abandonment. It's not giving up. It's choosing to stop suffering where suffering is no longer required. And most importantly, it's making space for better people, for better decisions, for better alignment, for better days. Because holding on out of fear never leads to better, it only leads to tired. You know, this is where it gets tricky for most people. Because the moment we bring up letting go, the fear shows up loud, dramatic, convincing. And it says things like, what if I regret it? What if I'm wrong? What if I lose something I was supposed to fight for? What if this is my last chance? Yes. The fear paints doomsday scenarios with so much confidence that it feels like truth. But here's the thing, fear is a terrible fortune teller. It always exaggerates loss and completely ignores what staying is costing you. Exactly. Fear lies by presenting only one side of the story. It tells you letting go will hurt, but it hides the fact that holding on is already hurting you. And psychologically, fear often doesn't mean, this is dangerous. It means, this is unfamiliar. Your nervous system reacts to change the same way it reacts to threats. So people mistake discomfort for a warning. Right, but discomfort isn't danger. Discomfort is transformation knocking. And that's why so many of us stay in what's familiar, even when it's draining us, relationships that exhaust us, habits that shrink us, roles that suffocate us. Not because they're good, but because they're predictable. Humans are funny like that. We'll cling to a sinking ship just because we've memorized the floor plan. Exactly. Fear lies by pretending the unknown is worse than the known pain, and it's simply not true. Okay, we should also talk about detachment versus avoidance. I think it is something a lot of people confuse. Yes, because they look similar from the outside, but the internal experience is completely different. Avoidance is rooted in fear. It's when you refuse to face something because it's uncomfortable, a conversation, a truth, a feeling.
Exactly.
Avoidance is turning your back on reality. But detachment?
Detachment is facing reality so clearly that you stop trying to force it to be something it isn't.
Avoidance says, I'm not dealing with this. Detachment says, I've dealt with this enough.
Avoidance pushes things under the rug. Detachment allows things to fall into place or fall away.
A simple way to know the difference? Check your body. Avoidance feels tight, anxious, rushed. Like you're running.
Detachment feels spacious, grounded, like something inside you finally unclenched.
Avoidance is fear pretending to protect you. Detachment is self-respect finally protecting you.
And when people understand this difference, letting go stops feeling like abandonment and starts feeling like alignment.
But how do you let go without feeling like you're abandoning yourself? Because so many people say, if I stop thinking about it, doesn't that mean I didn't care? And honestly, that belief traps more people than the actual situation itself.
It does. A lot of us grew up equating pain with loyalty. If I hold on, if I keep trying, if I keep turning this over in my head, it means I'm committed. But letting go isn't the same as giving up. Letting go is saying, I choose my peace over proving a point. I choose my well-being over being right. I choose to stop bleeding for something that doesn't feed me. That's not abandonment. That's maturity.
Exactly. There's this idea people carry, that real strength is holding on until your hands shake. But real strength is also knowing when to unclench. When to stop negotiating with something that only drains you. Letting go stops being quitting when you realize the real quitting was losing yourself in the first place.
Right. And it helps to reframe it. You're not letting go of the meaning something had in your life. You're letting go of the suffering around it. You keep the lesson. You release the weight.
Okay, let's get practical. Because letting go sounds poetic in theory, but in real life people think, how do I actually do that? My mind keeps coming back. Mental loops feel like your brain pulling you by the wrist back into the same room. So how do we break that?
I'll start with something simple but powerful. 1. Name the loop. Out loud if possible. When you say, I'm ruminating right now, you shift from being inside the thought to observing it. That tiny distance is everything.
Yes, labeling turns chaos into data. And your mind calms down when something becomes data. Another one I love. 2. Ask yourself, is this problem alive or just loud? A lot of loops are about things that are already over. Conversations that ended. People who left. Situations that won't change. Loud doesn't mean alive.
That question saved me more than once. Here's another. 3. Replace mental loops with physical grounding. Touch something cold. Take a slow breath. Put your hand on your chest. Walk for 60 seconds. The body interrupts the brain. It's like pressing the reset button that thinking alone can't reach.
And something I recommend to almost everyone. 4. Write one sentence. What am I actually afraid will happen? 9 times out of 10, the fear is much simpler and less dramatic than the rumination suggests. When you see your fear on paper, it loses its teeth.
And the last one, maybe the hardest. 5. Let the moment be incomplete. People cling because they want the perfect ending, closure, apology, understanding, fairness. But life doesn't give perfect endings on command. Letting go is accepting the chapter might stay open-looking, even if the story has already moved on.
That's beautifully said. Letting go isn't neat, but it is freeing.
And peace is built from imperfect endings.
You know, as we sit here wrapping up day 4, I keep thinking about something simple. Letting go isn't a dramatic act, it's a quiet skill, a muscle, a practice, and honestly, one of the kindest things you can do for yourself.
Exactly. People imagine letting go as losing something, but most of the time, it's relief. It's like taking off a heavy coat you didn't realize you were still wearing indoors. You don't become weaker, you just become free enough to move again.
And December, this month we're spending together. It's the perfect season for that. Not because the year is ending, but because there's finally enough quiet to hear yourself think.
Letting go is less closing a chapter and more clearing a little space inside yourself so life can breathe again. When you release the thought, the resentment, the story, the what if, you make room for a future that isn't shaped by old fears.
And if you're listening right now, whatever you're holding that's been weighing on you, just know this. You don't need to solve it tonight. You don't need to fix the whole story. You just need to loosen your grip by 1%. That's all. Letting go begins in microscopic shifts. And maybe, before you sleep tonight, ask yourself one gentle question. What am I carrying that doesn't belong to me anymore? You'd be surprised how clearly your body answers. Thank you for spending your December moments with us. This was day 4 of Podmas, the art of letting go. If this brought you a little clarity, a little peace, a little exhale, come back tomorrow. We'll keep exploring, keep unlearning, keep softening into ourselves. Until then, breathe, unclench your shoulders, and let something go, even the smallest thing.
Good night, and be good to yourself.